we don't really understand, mostly because the rules around the Sabbath have changed. We do not observe the Sabbath in the way that they did back in the day. We don't even observe the Sabbath the way they did back in the day, 20 years ago, right? Many of us grew up with blue laws in the South. We didn't have blue laws in the North, so I don't know what you heathens were doing down here. But in the South, for a long time, until pretty recently, it was illegal to do anything on Sunday. Not a thing. Society was set up in a way that made Sabbath really easy to keep. It is not true anymore. Sabbath is hard. It's one of the many choices we have with our life. And Sabbath is an important part of our life. You see, the rules that are in the Bible were put in place for our own good. Now, every kid hates to hear this because every parent says, these rules are for your own good, right? And every time your parent says, I don't want to put these rules in place, but I have to because it's for your own good, what do? Roll your eyes, right? They didn't feel that different about the rules in the Bible. Back in the day, in Leviticus, at the very beginning of the history of the nation of Israel, God put some rules into place. One of the rules that God put into place was the observance of the Sabbath. Every seventh day you should rest. 6 days you work as hard as you can. You feed your animals. You go to work. You do the things you need to do. But on the seventh day, you should rest. You should do nothing except for go to church all day. Thumbs up? Yeah? All of my youth people should have been excited about that. I'm just looking at you. We go to church all day. That's what you did on Sabbath day, was all day go to church. And so when we find ourselves today in the Gospel of Luke is an argument between two groups of people who had a different view of the same thing. They were two groups of people who were trying to get to the same place in the long run, but they were coming at it from different points of view. You see, the Sabbath people, the Pharisees in this story, are wanting to maintain purity. They think the most important thing in the world is to follow the rules the best way that you can, to adhere to the rules as best as you can, because they were afraid. The great, scary empire of Rome was coming, and they were taking over, and they were eliminating all of the things that the people who lived in Jerusalem found to be precious and dear to them. They were making them change all of the rules. And so what the Pharisees did was hold even more tightly to the rules as a way of sort of saying, Rome can't tell us what to do. Rome can't change us. Rome can't make us different. We're going to hold even more tightly onto the rules. We're going to try to be the purest form of Jewish followers that we could possibly be. And Jesus said that the point of the rules is not to follow them. The point of the rules is not just to follow the rules because they're there. The point of the rules is that they're good for you. That they're good for you. You follow what God commanded, he said, because it's good for us as people. It makes us better people, and it's good for those whom we are around. And the Pharisees said, yeah, but the rule is that you can't work on the Sabbath, and I saw you guys working on the Sabbath. You were picking grain, and you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. That's against the rules. And Jesus says, listen. The rules are there for the good of people. And what's the point of following them if you're hurting people in the long run? It's an argument between two people who love God very, very deeply, who want to follow what God commanded them to do, wanted to follow what the Bible told them to do, but had different ideas about how to go about doing it. We spend a lot of time arguing over process. We spend a lot of time arguing over how things should be done and not a lot of time talking about why. We spend a lot of time arguing and not a lot of time listening. We spend a lot of time yelling at each other and not a lot of time remembering that both people in this story care. They're devout. They're faithful followers of Jesus. And instead of talking about what is the best way in this time and in this place to follow God, they just argue with each other. They just yell at each other. They plot ways to destroy each other. Instead of listening to what Jesus maybe might have to say, it's easier to destroy the people we disagree with. We do this in a couple of ways. The first way we do this is called right fighting. Right fighting is the idea that we fight just so we can win. We're not actually trying to resolve anything. Nobody really cares what the right answer is, but the whole reason that we're fighting with one another is so that we can win. So that I can say at the end of this story, I was right. I bet you've never done that, right? My sister-in-law one time got in this really, 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 really intense argument. This was before Google. There was a day before Google. There was a day before you could have, you had computers in your pocket, like 15 years ago, right? This was before Google, and my sister-in-law got in this huge argument about which band sang I Want It That Way. This was a big deal. Karen knows the answer. It was Backstreet Boys. I was right. Right, we got in this huge argument about it, about who was right. All the way home, we'd eaten this lovely dinner together, we'd had a good time, we went to the movies, and on the way home, we got in this huge, angry argument about who sang a stupid song from the 90s, right? This was not important, but it was super important to us. And we got so mad at each other, so angry at each other, that to this day, we still cannot talk about it. And I have not said I was right in at least 5 years, right? It broke our relationship because we were so intense about being right that we forgot the whole point of this conversation was just sort of to have fun, to talk about which was our favorite boy band growing up, right? Being right is not as important as the people that we are in relationship with. The second way we do this is by pretending that the other side doesn't exist, or that the other side is really dumb. I did this with my little sister all the time, because she was smaller than me and younger than me, so therefore had to be stupid, right? I was older and wiser, and I knew more than she did, because I was older and wiser and taller. And we would get in fights about silly things, and she would say things to me that were right, but I couldn't admit that she was right because that would make me look weak. It would make me look small, I felt. I was insecure in myself, and so I could never admit that. She was right. There's almost always two right answers. There's almost always two right answers. There's almost always three right answers. Sometimes there's no right answer. And we get so concerned about being right that we forget that we, as people, don't know everything. We don't know everything. We cannot tell the future. I don't know what's going to happen an hour from now. I have some ideas. But we don't know, right? And we get so worried about being in control of our lives and being in control of everything, of knowing exactly what the right answer is in every situation, of never being caught out, of never admitting the vulnerability that we maybe don't know everything, that we forget that there is wisdom from people who are different or have different experiences than us. The third way we break relationships is by abandoning them altogether. This has been happening more and more lately in our lives. My brother and I agree on approximately three things. Three things, right? And it's not that we don't love each other, it's just we're different people. My brother does not think women should be ministers. Let me talk about how that conversation goes in our house, right? We don't agree on anything. But our relationship is more important to us. Our relationship is more important to us. The things in our life, like sharing memories with our children, is more important to us. And so when we go to Carowinds, we don't talk about women in ministry because that's not important to our relationship, right? It's just something we're going to have to let go. It's just something we're going to have to agree to disagree on. We should never make relationships with other people the thing that matters less than being right. Dr. Phil did an episode with the Jonas Brothers, right? I'm showing my age today. Did an episode with the Jonas Brothers, right? They broke up and they got back together, and I was listening to it, and he said, you should never make your relationship the thing that, your relationship is the most important thing over everything else in your life. It should never be non-negotiable. No matter what else happens in your life, your relationships with one another is the most important thing. Our relationships with our friends, our relationships with our parents and our siblings, more important. And so we can nurture those things by living into our promises. The promises that we make to God and the promises we make to each other. Kindness means listening before we speak. Respect means acknowledging that our differences are good and that we can hear them. Treating each other with honor means that we have dignity. Each person has dignity. Living into that and being trustworthy means that people know that we're a safe place for them to be. We don't have to agree on everything. We probably don't need to fight about nearly as much stuff as we do. Because Jesus tells us the most important thing is to treat one another with kindness and with love and with generosity. Amen.